รายการต่อไปนี้เป็นรายการทั่วไปสามารถรับชมได้ทุกวัย
สวัสดีค่ะมองเรามองโลกวันนี้เป็นการสัมภาษณ์ศาสตราจารย์สเตฟานการาลีผู้ก่อตั้ง IMD World Competitiveness Center หรือสถาบันการจัดอันดับขีดความสามารถในการแข่งขันของประเทศต่างๆทั่วโลกตั้งอยู่ที่ประเทศสวิตเซอร์แลนด์ค่ะมาดูกันนะคะว่าประเทศไหนมีขีดความสามารถในการแข่งขันที่อยู่ในระดับที่สูงปัจจัยอะไรบ้างที่ส่งผลกระทบต่อขีดความสามารถในการแข่งขันของประเทศและไทยเองจะต้องปรับปรุงอะไรบ้างเพื่อยกระดับขีดความสามารถในการแข่งขันค่ะสถาบัน IMD จัดอันดับขีดความสามารถในการแข่งขันของแต่ละประเทศทั่วโลกโดยวัดความสามารถในการทำงานของสถาบันต่างๆวัดประสิทธิภาพนโยบายของประเทศและวัดปัจจัยที่ทำให้เศรษฐกิจมีความก้าวหน้าและเจริญเติบโตอย่างยั่งยืนสถาบัน IMD ประสานกับสถาบันต่างๆที่เป็นพันธมิตรในการจัดหาข้อมูลจากแหล่งต่างๆและแจกแบบสอบถามไปยังผู้บริหารธุรกิจภายในประเทศนั้นๆสำหรับการจัดอันดับขีดความสามารถในการแข่งขันในปี 2014 อันดับแรกได้แก่สหรัฐอเมริกาอันดับที่ 2 สวิตเซอร์แลนด์อันดับที่ 3 สิงคโปร์อันดับที่ 4 ฮ่องกงและอันดับที่ 5 สวีเดนProfessor Garelli, how would you describe competitiveness?
Competitiveness is different from economic performance because what we do is that we take all the kind of resource and competencies of a country. You know, in the good old days when I was learning economics, it was basically about balance of trade, budget, and interest rates. But now we know that a country is competitive if it's able to manage education well, if it's able to manage infrastructure, the efficiency of the government. So competitiveness is taking all these together and to manage actually a totality of resource and competencies to make a country more prosperous.
What are the criteria that you use to measure competitiveness of countries?
We are using 320, which is a lot. Two-thirds of them are hard data, which mean statistics you can find in the IMF, the World Bank, measuring competitiveness, such as trade, such as budget deficit, etc. And one-third are opinion survey, which is competitiveness perceived. How people perceive competitiveness, for example, is the education system supporting the competitiveness of enterprise? Are people motivated, etc.?
Is there any special or interesting trend in the rankings this year?
Yes, I think that we see definitely that we are going out in the US and Europe of the recession, but we are not going out as quickly as expected. All right, so the turnaround is a relatively slow one, and this has an impact on Asian economies because, of course, these economies are very much linked to each other. So we see a slowdown in China, which is only growing now 7.5%, which still would be okay for many countries, right? Even for Thailand. But we see a recovery, but not as powerful as we would have expected. And maybe, at least for the US and Europe, the cruising speed of the economy will be slower in the future than what it used to be. By slow, we mean probably 1.5% for Europe and maybe 2% for the US.
The USA is in first place again this
correct.
year, second year in a row.
Yeah.
And the other top 5, Singapore, Hong Kong, Switzerland, and Sweden.
Yes,
These are the same old faces as last year. What is it that these countries get right?
Well, first of all, you may have noticed that on the first 5-1, there is one big country, the US, and 4 smaller ones.
Right.
Which means that smaller nations are probably easier to manage than big ones. The problem is that smaller nations are precisely small, which means the market is not as big as in the US or China or India. So you have to make a balance. I think they have a lot of things in common. They have a very good infrastructure. They have also a very diversified economy. This is very important. You know, I'm coming from Switzerland, and people tell me, well, Switzerland, this is about chocolate and watches. I say, well, maybe, you know, we have banking. Oh, yes, banking. And then we have food. Oh, yes, Nestle. And then we have pharmaceutical. Oh, yes, Novartis. And you discover that the economy is very diversified. Same apply with Sweden, etc. So in general, those countries performing very well are very diversified. They still manufacture. They still have an industry. The made-in concept, made in Thailand, is very important. It's part also of the image of a country. So actually, we see that there are a few things in common. They're very good small and medium-sized enterprise. Germany is also a good example of that. You know, you go everywhere around the world, and you see large companies, very efficient, in any country, even the poorest one. But it's not in every country that you will find, how do I say, small and medium-sized enterprise, which are efficient, export-oriented with the technology. This you won't find anywhere.
For Switzerland,
Yes.
does the Swiss government focus all the time on improving competitiveness?
It's a very big issue in the country, but I think it's improving the framework. You know, they say, okay, we give you the environment, good legislation, predictable legislation. This is very important. You need to have a sense of direction where the legislation is going. Trying to simplify it is very important because government have a tendency to put things a bit more complex. So we try to go backward now to simplify, making it more transparent, more accountable. So they will try to give a framework, but inside this framework, the enterprise would be free to operate. So there is little intervention of the government to say, you should do this or you should do that. They would say, these are the rules of the game. This is how you should play. Again, if you have a football match, this would be the referee saying, you know, you are playing football, you're not playing rugby, okay? If you respect the rule, do it. But if you don't respect the rule, then we will jump in. I think it's a very important concept in the free market economy, which is a free market economy is not an economy without rules. There are a lot of rules. But once you comply with the rules, you are free to do whatever you want.
Now the UAE, I think it's the only country from the Middle East that made it to the top 10. It's in 8th.
That's correct.
What are the strong points?
It's I mean, the UAE is very different in itself. I mean, Dubai, very strong in attracting foreign investment, no oil or very little oil. So they had to work on added value program like tourism, like state tax-free zone, etc. While Abu Dhabi, just next door, has a lot of oil and gas and could benefit a lot of revenues. Altogether, the government has been relatively efficient in Dubai and the United Arab Emirates. They have done pretty well. And they went through their own crisis, financial one. They survived because, of course, there is a lot of revenues. There was a lot also of solidarity, you know, between them. And at the end of the day, I think we can say that the confidence is back. So they are going up. But again, we are speaking about rather small economies, you know. It's easier when you are running a small nation to correct the wrongs and to go back into upturn than if you are managing India. That will take more time.